1931, a forgettable football movie, a broken shoulder during filming. That single injury destroyed 2 careers at once, robbed him of Olympic gold he'd already earned, and cost him the most famous jungle role in cinema history. MGM threatened theater owners who dared show his film. He worked for free in crocodile-infested jungles while fighting off armed natives. He erased his own identity and disappeared for years. What if I told you he beat Ronald Reagan for a role opposite Humphrey Bogart? What if I told you he was married for 67 years in Hollywood? And what if I told you, at age 96, he jumped from an airplane at 10,000 feet? Some say it was bad luck. Others say it was sabotage. But what if it was the greatest Hollywood theft nobody remembers? His name was Herman Brix. You know him as someone else. MGM made sure of that. MGM tried to erase Herman Brix from Hollywood. They succeeded. But before the shoulder broke, before the Tarzan role vanished, before he became Bruce Bennett, a 5-year-old boy in Tacoma learned he'd spend his entire life carrying a dead brother's name. That's where the erasure actually started. Number 1. Named after the dead brother, his father never stopped mourning. Harold Herman Brix entered the world on May 19, 1906 in Tacoma, Washington, and that first name vanished before he reached high school. Anton Brix, his father, owned logging camps across the Pacific Northwest and ranked among the city's elite, a prosperous German immigrant who'd already buried his firstborn son before Harold arrived. The dead child carried the name Herman, and the baby received it as a middle name in tribute to a boy he'd never meet. By high school, the living son abandoned Harold entirely, becoming Herman to satisfy a father who never recovered from losing his favored first boy, and he carried that ghost's name for the next 100 years. Indoor plumbing marked the Brix household as one of Tacoma's wealthiest in the early 1900s, but young Herman earned his legendary physique through summers in the logging camps, doing what he called plain hard work. 16 varsity letters at Stadium High School, starring as the lead in The Pirates of Penzance on stage, and the conflict between athletics and the arts that would eventually destroy his first career, started before he turned 18. That conflict exploded 4 years later on the world stage. Number 2, Olympic record on his first throw, then watching gold slip away to a man on a broken ankle. The 1928 Amsterdam Olympics placed 22-year-old Herman Brix on the biggest stage in athletics, representing America in the shot put, with expectations he'd bring home gold. His very first throw traveled 51 feet 8 inches and set a new Olympic record that would stand as the University of Washington school record until 1956, leading the entire competition until teammate John Cook stepped up. Cook competed on a broken ankle and somehow unleashed a world record throw of 52 feet and 3/4 of an inch to claim gold. And the margin that separated Herman Brix from Olympic glory measured 4 3/4 inches. Swimmers Johnny Weissmuller and Buster Crabbe trained in the same facilities during those games, and Brix befriended both men, remembering decades later how they hung around a little together on ship and cheered for each other. All 3 athletes would eventually play Tarzan on film. Only Weissmuller would become a household name, and the reason why would haunt Brix until he died. American shot putting belonged to Herman Brix after Amsterdam, winning 7 national championships and going undefeated for over 5 years straight, while his personal best kept climbing. In May 1932, his throw of 52 feet 8 3/4 inches would have won gold at the upcoming Los Angeles Olympics that summer, and that's when Paramount Pictures came calling with a small role that destroyed everything. Number 3, one broken shoulder, destroyed the Tarzan role and Olympic gold in the same month. Paramount cast Brix in 1931 as a running back in Touchdown, a forgettable college football picture nobody remembers today, and during filming, his shoulder broke. The injury created a catastrophic double loss that happened almost simultaneously, stealing 2 different futures from the same man. MGM had been searching for their Tarzan and settled on Brix as the frontrunner after Douglas Fairbanks Jr. personally recommended him, but his recovery timeline remained uncertain following the shoulder break. the studio pivoted to swimmer Johnny Weissmuller, his friend from the Amsterdam Olympics, and Tarzan the Ape Man, released in 1932 to make Weissmuller an international sensation. 12 films followed, establishing the grunting, monosyllabic Tarzan that audiences still recognize today, and Brix watched it all from the sidelines. The second casualty hit just as hard when he couldn't maintain his form with a healing shoulder, failing to qualify for the 1932 Los Angeles Olympics, despite holding the world record, despite being the favorite to win gold, and the crushing irony burned for decades, because his personal best of 52 feet 8 3/4 would have won gold that year, beating every competitor. Both his athletic career and his chance at stardom evaporated because of one fall during one scene in one movie nobody saw. And 3 years later, Edgar Rice Burroughs gave him a second chance that nearly killed him. Number 4, crocodiles, chimp attacks, armed natives, and never receiving a single dollar. By 1935, Edgar Rice Burroughs had reached his breaking point with MGM's portrayal of his cultured English lord as a grunting caveman. Burroughs co-founded Burroughs Tarzan Enterprises to create an authentic adaptation, and after auditioning over 100 candidates, he selected Herman Brix for the role. The New Adventures of Tarzan production became a survival ordeal that reads like a disaster film when you examine what actually happened to the cast and crew. 29 people sailed to Guatemala in late 1934 with several tons of equipment, and what followed nearly killed the star multiple times while cameras rolled. There was only a single sharpshooter up in the trees to keep the croc away from me, Brix recalled 64 years later, still remembering the terror of swimming in crocodile-infested waters for the perfect shot. The production tested a vine with a 200-pound weight before his famous swing, but when Brix took a running start, the vine held and he overshot the small pool below, crashing onto rocks and leaving scars he carried for the rest of his life. A semi-trained chimpanzee badly bit him during filming, dysentery struck him in the jungle, and a serious leg infection nearly cost him his ability to walk. The New York Times reported that Tarzan and 2 cameramen were attacked by Guatemala Indians for disturbing religious ceremonies, and Brix explained that the natives were convinced they were hexing the village when cameras appeared during their rituals. $50,000 disappeared before production finished, forcing the crew to evade creditors by retreating deeper into the jungle to complete filming. And Herman Brix never received a single dollar of his contracted salary. The money vanished in the production's financial collapse, and when the film finally reached American theaters, MGM launched a campaign to make sure audiences would never see it. Number 5, MGM threatened theater owners to kill his Tarzan before it could succeed. The jungle nightmare continued long after filming wrapped, and the crew returned to America. When The New Adventures of Tarzan reached theaters in 1935, MGM launched what multiple sources describe as a calculated destruction campaign targeting Brix's film. The studio threatened theater owners with a simple ultimatum that destroyed any chance of success, telling them if you show the Brix Tarzan serial, you won't be allowed to screen the next Weissmuller film. Weissmuller's Tarzan pictures guaranteed box office returns, which meant theater chains chose survival over competition, and American audiences barely saw Brix's authentic portrayal. Reviews in American trade publications came back suspiciously poor, possibly influenced by MGM's massive advertising relationships with those same publications that depended on studio money. But overseas, where MGM held less power, the reception told a different story. Brix's Tarzan became a sensation in Europe, ranking 20th in popularity in France and Britain from a single sabotaged film that most Americans never watched. Burroughs' grandson Danton later wrote what Hollywood refused to acknowledge, saying Herman Brix brought a presence to the screen that many people feel personifies the Tarzan of the books, lean and muscular, articulate and dignified, moving with the superb athletic grace that my grandfather envisioned. Film historian Gabe Esso went further, declaring that Brix's portrayal remained the only time between the silence and the 1960s that Tarzan received accurate depiction in films. The character spoke in complete sentences when explorers discovered him in the jungle. Why, yes, I'm Tarzan, also known as Lord Greystoke. How may I help you? Brix's Tarzan responded with dignity, a far cry from Weissmuller's famous grunts and chest beating that defined the role for generations. By the late 1930s, the Tarzan Association had become a prison, threatening to end his acting career entirely. And that's when Herman Brix made a decision that few actors would have the courage to attempt. Number 6, the disappearing act that erased Herman Brix from existence. Herman Brix found himself trapped in a cage of his own making by the late 1930s, unable to escape the jungle role that should have made him famous. Warner Brothers canceled a screen test when a casting director saw his Life magazine photo as Tarzan, explaining they couldn't use him because audiences would see him as Tarzan and wouldn't accept him as an actor in other roles, and the typecasting slammed shut the door to legitimate Hollywood work. Brix made a decision that few actors would dare, going into hiding for years while he enrolled in acting classes at German filmmaker Max Reinhardt's prestigious school, and meticulously planned his reinvention away from public view. I made up a list of 7 or 8 names and asked people which they liked best, he explained later. And Bruce Bennett emerged in 1939 when Herman Brix ceased to exist. Daredevils of the Red Circle became his final film as Herman Brix. My Son is Guilty became his first as Bruce Bennett the same year, and the transformation exceeded everyone's expectations. Columbia Pictures signed him immediately, and Warner Brothers came calling soon after, transforming the muscle man trapped in jungle serials into a respected character actor, appearing in A pictures opposite the biggest stars in Hollywood. The man who should have played Tarzan started working with Humphrey Bogart instead, and the greatest irony arrived when he beat a future president for one of cinema's most famous roles. Number 7, beat Ronald Reagan for the role opposite Bogart in a film that defined cinema. Bruce Bennett assembled a roster of co-stars that most actors only dream about once his reinvention succeeded. Humphrey Bogart in 3 films, Joan Crawford in 2, plus Bette Davis, James Stewart, and even Elvis Presley decades later when rock and roll had conquered Hollywood. Mildred Pierce in 1945 cast him as Joan Crawford's weak-willed ex-husband opposite her Oscar-winning performance, proving he could hold his own against Hollywood royalty without getting swallowed by their star power. The Treasure of the Sierra Madre in 1948 delivered the sweetest irony of his reinvented career, when director John Huston originally wanted Ronald Reagan for the role of Cody, the doomed prospector who discovers the miners' gold camp. Jack Warner reassigned Reagan to another project. Bennett won the part, and he appeared alongside Bogart in what film schools now teach as one of cinema's greatest achievements. His assessment remained characteristically understated when asked about the experience years later. "I wish I would have had more to do in the film. I hated to get killed so soon," he admitted, showing zero ego about appearing in a masterpiece that directors still study today. The dignified character actor who worked with Bogart and Crawford shocked everyone who knew him in 1959, when he made a film that Hollywood spent decades trying to forget. Number 8, the secret exploitation film the respectable actor wrote and starred in. The dignified character actor from Mildred Pierce and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre did something inexplicable in 1959 that still baffles film historians. Bruce Bennett co-wrote and starred in Fiend of Dope Island, an exploitation film where he plays a sadistic, whip-cracking marijuana plantation dictator who terrorizes an island with brutal violence. Reviewers described it as insane and over-the-top, depraved and gonzo, while Bennett's performance earned comparisons to Timothy Carey levels of unhinged ham. The contrast with his respectable Warner Brothers work remains so jarring that most biographies barely acknowledge it exists. And the punk band, The Cramps, named their final album after this film 47 years later in tribute to its gonzo insanity. Bennett never explained his decision in interviews, leaving no record of why he chose this project. And the film stands as one of Hollywood's strangest career detours from a respected actor. What remained consistent throughout his life was how he chose to live it, becoming Hollywood's most successful hermit, while everyone around him imploded from the industry's pressures. Number 9. 0 Hollywood parties in a 67-year marriage that outlasted the studio system. Bruce Bennett defied every Hollywood stereotype in an industry defined by scandal, divorce, and self-destruction. How many Hollywood parties did he attend during his decades in the business? An interviewer asked him late in life. None, came his immediate answer. I was determined to keep my sanity. January 21st, 1933, marked his elopement with Jeanette Cannon Braddock after 9 months of dating, and they remained married for 67 years until her death in 2000. His greatest achievement, according to Bennett, had nothing to do with his Olympic medal, or his films with Bogart, or working with Joan Crawford when interviewers asked him late in life. He pointed to his marriage, and that answer reveals everything about what he valued beyond the Hollywood spotlight. 2 children, named Christopher and Christina, 3 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren filled his life outside the cameras, while Bennett worked in vending machine sales and real estate after Hollywood to become a successful businessman who continued working past age 80. Reclusive describes how colleagues and journalists characterized him, granting only one major interview for his 2001 biography, Please Don't Call Me Tarzan, and he achieved the quiet life that most Hollywood stars claim to want, but never actually manage. The man who survived Crocodiles and MGM's Sabotage refused to slow down even as he approached his 100th birthday, and what he did at 96 shocked everyone who knew him. Number 10, skydiving at 96, dead at 100 from a broken hip. Crocodiles, chimp attacks, broken shoulders, and MGM's conspiracy to destroy his career hadn't taught Bruce Bennett to act his age. 96 years old when he jumped from 10,000 feet over Lake Tahoe, pursuing parasailing and skydiving throughout his later years when most centenarians struggle to walk across a room. Age isn't computable by number of years, he explained in 1988. It is truly only a state of mind. We know many young people of 90 and old people of 20. May 19th, 2006 marked his 100th birthday, reaching a milestone fewer than one in 5,000 Americans achieve, and he seemed destined to keep jumping from airplanes forever. 3 months before turning 101, February 24th, 2007, he died at Santa Monica UCLA Medical Center from complications of a broken hip suffered in a fall at home. A mundane end arrived for a man who'd survived the Guatemalan jungle and jumped from airplanes in his 90s. His ashes scattered at sea according to his final wishes. Memorial donations should go to the Olympic Committee, he requested, showing that even at 100 years old, the silver medalist from 1928 still remembered where his story began, carrying that 4 3/4-inch loss for 79 years. A dead brother's name followed him through life. Olympic record on his first throw. 4 3/4 inches separated him from gold. One broken shoulder destroyed 2 careers simultaneously. His Olympic friend took the Tarzan role. The jungle nightmare left him with scars and 0 payment. Crocodiles circled while he swam. Chimps attacked during filming. Armed natives thought cameras were hexing their village. MGM threatened every theater owner to kill his film. Years disappeared while he erased his identity. Bruce Bennett replaced Herman Brix. Ronald Reagan lost the Bogart role to him, a secret exploitation film nobody mentions. 0 Hollywood parties in 67 years. Marriage became his greatest achievement by his own admission. 10,000 feet at 96 years old, 100 years before a broken hip ended it. Herman Brix's story proves something nobody wants to admit about Hollywood. Olympic records don't guarantee gold. Being the better Tarzan means nothing if MGM wants you erased. Surviving Crocodiles earns you nothing. The most powerful studio in Hollywood can sabotage your career, and you can still outlive them all. The injury stole Tarzan from him. MGM tried destroying what remained. He became someone else and worked with Bogart instead. Every Hollywood party went unattended. 67 years with the same woman. Jumping from airplanes at 96. Weissmuller made 12 Tarzan films and died broke. MGM collapsed into history. The studio system that tried destroying him crumbled to dust. Bruce Bennett reached 100 without complaining once about what they stole. The ultimate revenge on the greatest Hollywood theft nobody remembers. If Herman Brix's journey from Olympic heartbreak to Hollywood conspiracy to quiet victory moved you, you're going to want to see next week's video. We're covering another legend from your generation who lived an impossible life that Hollywood tried to erase. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And if you've got your own memories of watching those old Tarzan films, or thoughts on how Hollywood treated its stars, share them in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.